Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to do something that is never done normally. We're going to start even before our time, because we have a bit of a challenge this year. Despite all the fears about traveling, international travel, it looks like our event is oversubscribed. We have more speakers than we have time. So I will end up being trying to run a very tight ship, even at the point of being nasty to some speakers, perhaps. But, you know, to make sure that we don't run over time and that everybody speaks and has enough time to express it himself or herself. So I can start with my remarks because they perhaps are not so important. Of course, first of all, I would like to welcome you on behalf of Cerba. As the chairman of the National Board of Cerba, I would like, on behalf of the board of Cerba, but also of our staff that is working diligently on the event today, to welcome you all to this event. As I said, you know, health concerns have not had too much impact on our meeting. We have more people this year than probably ever before, and we have more speakers. And of course, again, we are delighted to see such strong support and for our members and partners for an event that we've been organizing now for almost 20 years. Almost. 19. Yeah, okay. I knew that my godfather would correct me, Mr. Namoski, but that's okay. So I think the first thing I was going to say is that, of course, we don't need to make such a case for PDAC. Despite everything, people show up year in, year out for PDAC as an event, as a premier presentation platform, and most successful, and our event, a most successful Canadian business-driven mining event on Eurasia. And I would like to say nowadays that I much prefer the expression Greater Eurasia, because I think it describes far more better the activity of Cerba. I should note also very quickly, of course, that in the various cycles of government support and interest for our activity, the Government of Canada still supports very generously our activity. And I think this is one of the most important things we've seen in changes in the last few years in terms of, I think it's called Canada Export now, but I think this is very relevant, and I think Canadian taxpayers should be aware of the fact that, you know, the Canadian government is really very supportive of the activities of Cerba when it comes to trade missions and trade activity. I think I would also, Mr. Natkin, did you bring a presentation?
Yes.
Okay, so I'd like that present on paper that is available.
I believe Vera said it will be available on the website, okay. And I'm happy to share it.
So I added something in my note here about the macro advisory presentation, but I just wanted to make sure macro advisory will make a presentation, and it will be available this year in a paperless form. Of course, I suppose to make also a case for Cerba, but of course I think those of you who are here do not need to hear a case about Cerba, because Cerba is basically, as always, responding to the needs of its partners and stakeholders in a very, how to say, very efficient way. So then I think that's the case. At some point, you will remind me that when everybody is settled in, we'll make sure to introduce all the members of staff of Cerba that is here today. But right now, I think some are still running around trying to corral the last delegates. And I would like to finish by thanking our partners, supporters, and sponsors, without whom we would not be able to do this event. And of course, the first company that we need to mention is Kinross Gold Corporation, a senior gold sponsor of this event. Thank you very much. Other sponsors include Cameco, B2 Gold, and Sequent. And we also have information partners, the Canadian Mining Journal, MineX Forum, and the Mining Advisory Council. I wish you a productive, entertaining, and useful discussion, and I will try to keep to my own rules to keep certain presentations short. So the first speaker to whom I will pass the floor is Ambassador Darchiev, Ambassador of the Russian Federation to Canada.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, comrades, I'm highly honored to participate in the Jubilee 20th Cerba Eurasian Mining Conference as a true veteran, greeting, I guess, for the 6th time representatives of mining industry from Canada and the Eurasian Economic Union's member state, as well as from other countries making Greater Eurasia. At a time when protectionism and unilateralism are on the rise, it's high time to explore new opportunities and build bridges with prospective emerging markets at the continent of Eurasia, where new global transportation corridors will connect Europe and Asia Pacific, including Vladivostok transit route to North America, and the hugest deposits of mineral resources are located. Despite many bumps on the road, misconceptions combined with malicious or immaculate deceptions, mining industries in Canada and Russia demonstrate responsible approach, relying on sustainable technologies and wide support of local communities, which is topical with regard to the Aboriginal population in the Arctic. Contrary to dire predictions of a looming global recession, miners in our countries have been working hard to strengthen tenacity and competitiveness of respective economies' production sectors. It's noteworthy that last year Canadian mining industry increased output of copper, lead, nickel, silver and zinc ores, while Russian miners achieved stable 3.4% growth. The gold production in Russia reached the record level of 314 tons in 2019, with significant contribution made by the renowned Canadian producer Kyrgyz Gold, successfully developing its mines Kupol and Dvoynoye in the Arctic, Russian Arctic Chukotka Peninsula. As Russia becomes the world-leading producer of palladium, it has remained one of the largest suppliers to Canada of this metal, important in fighting carbon pollution. With mining sector being the backbone of stable economic growth, as well as the model for large-scale foreign investment, Russian government has prioritized transparency and reliability of legal and tax environment for both domestic and international investors. In particular, a better access to collected geological information was provided due to the recently adopted amendments to the national legislation on mineral resources. Moreover, the government-approved strategy of mineral resources development until 2035 provides for a clear set of rules in exploration and extraction of mineral resources. It is within this pattern of openness and free trade, as opposed to imposing barriers and tariffs, that the Eurasian Economic Union of Russia, Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, as well as other key players in Greater Eurasia like China, Mongolia and Uzbekistan, are involved in multi-dimensional engagement, embracing mining and processing, energy, transportation, high-tech and information technologies. Canada could take advantage if diversification does remain the slogan of the day, not lip service of this lucrative environment provided by integration processes in Greater Eurasia. The Eurasian Economic Union, bringing together fully sovereign states while taking advantage of geography and deep historical connections, guaranteeing, among other things, free flow of labor and capital, is now actively negotiating free trade agreements with partner states in Eurasia and beyond. For instance, in October 2016, the free trade agreement with Vietnam came into effect, followed recently by signing the FTA with Singapore and Serbia. The Eurasian Economic Union and Iran have reached the interim FTA, while negotiations are ongoing with Israel and Egypt. agreement between the EU and China on economic and trade cooperation came into force on October 25th last year. Moreover, Moldova received observer status in the Union in 2018 with Mongolia, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, as well as some ASEAN countries like Indonesia and Thailand are considering various forms of cooperations. So, all prerequisites are there for a positive change in Russian-Canadian economic relations, especially due to the mining sector, which has always been the driver of our bilateral business cooperation, represented by such flag companies as the distinguished Kyrgyz Gold, Silver Beer Resources, and Amur Minerals. Contrary to dire predictions, bilateral trade after initial fall due to sanctions is now demonstrating some encouraging growth and reached $2 billion, which of course is below the potential that our countries share, but under given circumstances can be regarded as a modest success story. As an ex officio optimist, due to the nature of my posting, but informed pessimist, thanks to my long experience, I nevertheless believe that sometime, somehow, pragmatism and common sense will prevail in this country as well, and when it comes to your next door neighbor. Without that, no serious business divorced from short-sighted politics could flourish. Me and my colleagues at the embassy, general consulates in Montreal and Toronto, the Russian trade mission in Ottawa will continue to remain attentive to your ideas and proposals, being open and always ready to assist you in coming to Russia and the Eurasian Economic Union and in finding true partners there. We strongly recommend you to have on radar screens in 2020 St. Petersburg International Forum, which will take place in June, the Eastern Economic Forum to be held in Vladivostok in September, and Russian Energy Week that will run in Moscow in the beginning of October. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Darchiev. I think that's why I did not need to make a case for doing business with Greater Eurasia. Ambassador did that very well for me. Our next speaker is the Ambassador of Mongolia, His Excellency Ariunbold Yadmaa. Please, Ambassador.
Excellencies, Ambassadors, Charge d'Affaires, Honorable Chairman of Cerba, past chairmen and future chairmen, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I would like to express my sincere gratitude for inviting me to Cerba for this very important celebration of 20th anniversary in 2020. I would like just in the beginning to say that we were planning to have the broader participation in this event, and unfortunately, due to the current outbreak of this virus, our delegation headed by Minister for Mining and Heavy Industry was not able to attend with the entire delegation, and which is very regretful. And taking this opportunity, I would like to announce that Mongolia still have 0 cases of this virus affected, and just although we are limited neighbor. So please do visit Mongolia freely. So let me start from, just as emphasized by Ambassador, on the Cerba cooperation. In December of last year, my Prime Minister visited Moscow, and at that time he had Commissioner of the Cerba Economic Cooperation, and we discussed about future cooperation opportunities for 2020-2021. And at the time, my Prime Minister proposed to establish free trade agreement with the Cerba regions, with the Eurasia regions, and I think the Eurasia regions will consider this proposal. So with that, also since we had this PDAC contentious, I would like to talk a little bit about Mongolia's mining. One of the largest flagship project of Mongolia is OT, and it was discovered in 2001 and in the Gobi Desert of Mongolia. In this project, deposits contain 2,700,000 tons of the copper, 1.7 million ounces of gold. It also contains 1.9 thousand tons of silver, 205,000 tons of molybdenum. It's one of the world's largest flagship project in Mongolia by the deposit, and located 80 kilometers from the Mongolia-China border, which is close to our exporting market. And the estimate potential of operation approximately 100 years. And in 2009, Turkish Resources Company signed a long-term agreement with the Mongolian government, which possesses 34% of the interest of that project. And Rio Tinto company began managing the development of this project since 2010. And in general, the Canadian investment into the project is estimated nearly $6.4 billion. And this project, of course, just benefiting the entire country with the tax and employment and subcontracting companies' contribution. And one of the advantages of this project that we see in the development of mining bringing to the country is just the technology. The last year, the project announced that they built and operating the shaft 2, which is 10-meter diameter, approximately 1.3 kilometer deep from the surface. And this crucial piece of the infrastructure accelerates the underground development of this world-class mine. The shaft uses world's largest production hoist motor and carry on one time 300 people to surface, and also lift 60 tons of skips in production hoist. In operating at maximum capacity, the production hoist can elevate 35,000 tons material in surface daily. And for your information, Mongolia, Canada has concluded in 2016 the FIPA, for Foreign Investment Protection Agreement, and also we have a convention signed in 2013 on avoidance of double taxation, which creates the favorable environment to build up those projects. That strong reciprocal protections in FIPA will help Canadian and Mongolian companies to deepen commercial ties with confidence and to support job creation. And in the meantime, I would like just to emphasize on the 2 projects which is implemented by the government funding to strengthen our capacity and mining industry. So we really in Mongolia highly appreciate Canadian international development assistance. One of the projects is to strengthen extractive sector management in Mongolia. We name it SESMIM. That project sponsored by Global Affairs, and it is designed to build Mongolian public sector capacity for transparent and effective policy implementation, supporting sustainable growth in the extractive sector. And by working with the government of project, contributing to strengthen policy and regulations, improving coordination between ministries and key stakeholders, as well as using evidence-based decision-making system. And another project we have, it's enhancing resource management through international institutional transformation. We name it MERIT project. Also, it contributes to stimulate sustainable economic growth in Mongolia by strengthening the capacity of public institutions. So in mainly Mongolia's development of the mining investment and operation is combined with the government policy and support, and also to encourage the international cooperation in bilateral and in multilateral levels. Another point, just I would like to take this opportunity to emphasize is that just we have very ongoing, strong trilateral cooperation in our region. So it was initiated by the President of Mongolia for the first in 2014, and the President of Mongolia, China, and Russia first met in Dushanbe in 2014 September and discussed to build trilateral cooperation. And subsequently, this meeting was held 2014 in Russian Federation and 2016 in Uzbekistan. The three parties signed the Mongolia-Russia-China Economic Corridor Program, which aims to facilitate trade and increase commodities transportation through closer trilateral cooperation and implement joint infrastructure projects. As far as environment that facilitates trilateral cooperation in transportation and trade, I would like to emphasize that the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement that is ratified by the three countries. Trade Facilitation Agreement contains provision for expediting the movement, release, and clearance of goods, including goods and transit. It also sets out measures to effective cooperation between customs and other appropriate authorities in trade facilitation and customs compliance. The Intergovernmental Agreement and International Road Transport along with the Asian Highway Network was signed by transport ministers of Mongolia, Russia, and China in Moscow, December 8, 2016. The agreement was negotiated over a 3 years period, which also supported by the technical assistance of UN. And by signing the agreement, each country agreed to give the other two countries traffic rights for international road transport operation in the parts of Asian highway routes AH3 and AH4. So those main points just I would like to emphasize for today's event, and I would like success to this event, and also I would like to express my full support to anybody who are willing to cooperate. My embassy will be in strong support of you. Thank you.
Ambassador Brousseau, you ready? No. So, the next speaker will be an acquaintance of a long time. I will not add any comment. Nicolas Brousseau is Canada's ambassador to the Republic of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyz Republic and Tajikistan. Nicolas, voilà.
A 15-pager double-sided in French, is it fine with you? Vice Minister Darchiev, Excellencies, friends, colleagues, always a great pleasure and honor to speak at the Cerba Eurasia Mining Conference, particularly in this very special year for Cerba. As Canada's ambassador to Kazakhstan, it is my pleasure to say a few words about our blossoming mining relationship between our two countries. A similar climate, unfortunately, and geography make Canada and Kazakhstan natural partners in many areas, but few are as promising as mining. And I would usually go on at length listing our similarities, but I think I don't have to tell a room full of mining professionals. Our geography has made Canada and Kazakhstan natural partners. Indeed, the similarity of our geography and climate and the challenges and opportunities they create in two such vast, multi-ethnic and multi-linguistic countries could make Canada and Kazakhstan twins separated at birth, from a mining perspective at least. Canada's reputation for expertise in mining is well deserved. In 2018, Canada's mining industry contributed $97 billion, or 5%, to Canada's total nominal GDP. The industry's direct and indirect employment exceeds 620,000 jobs, accounting for 1 in every 30 jobs in Canada. Proportionally, the mining industry is the largest private sector employer of Indigenous peoples in Canada and provides over 16,000 jobs to community members in 2018. Canada ranks among the top 5 countries in the world for the production of 15 minerals and metals, many of which are integral to the low-carbon technology needed for a greener future. Valued at $105 billion in 2018, mineral exports accounted for 19% of Canada's total domestic export. This pedigree, combined with the excellence of Canadian mining personnel, mining management, and mining financing make Canada the ideal partner for Kazakhstan in mining. And indeed, over my almost 3 years in Kazakhstan, the growth of cooperation between Canada and Kazakhstan in the mining sector has been one of our greatest success stories. From the largest ever Kazakhstani delegation to PDAC, to Canadian delegations incoming to Kazakhstan, our relationship in mining continues to strengthen. As you will hear from other speakers today, Kazakhstan has vast mineral wealth and is an engaged and enthusiastic partner in their development. And I'm very proud to have Vice Minister Bayev delegation here so that you can hear about these exciting opportunities firsthand. The size and the quality of Kazakhstan delegation to PDAC this year is a clear sign that Kazakhstan's mining sector is open for business. Canada is and will continue to be a special partner in the mining space. And I will conclude my remark by thanking our friend at Cerba for their continued efforts to highlight the opportunities for collaboration between Canada and Eurasia, and to wish you all a very productive and profitable PDAC. Thank you.
Okay. I'm thinking about getting nasty at some point, but I think we've been disciplined so far. The next speaker is Stephane Jobin, Deputy Ambassador of Canada to the Russian Federation, Uzbekistan and Armenia, who has the odd distinction of being in one of my old jobs, actually. Salut, Stephane.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, chers amis, chers collègues, dames et господа, уважаемые гости. It's an honor to be here, and I wish to extend a warm welcome to everyone today. I'd like to begin by also congratulating Cerba on the occasion of the 20th anniversary of this mining conference, which has become a central element of PDAC, an important vehicle for spurring cooperation between Canada and Eurasia in that sector. It's known for the high caliber of its speakers, moderators, and participants, and I'm sure that today will be no exception. In that regard, I'm pleased to welcome officials from Russia, especially from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Ecology and Rosnedra, and officials from the State Committee for Geology of the Republic of Uzbekistan to Toronto. We greatly appreciate our positive working relationship, and I'm looking forward to listening to your presentations on the latest developments in your respective countries, as I am sure many Canadian companies in the audience are as well. As Deputy Ambassador for Canada in Russia, Uzbekistan and Armenia, I'm keenly aware of the breadth of opportunities that exist for cooperation between our countries. In Uzbekistan, for example, we are pleased to see the great progress the government is making in implementing its economic reforms in areas such as governance, economics, rule of law, and how it has re-engaged with its Central Asian neighbors toward building stability and prosperity in the region. As a result, the Uzbek market holds increasing potential for Canadian companies, and they've noticed. For example, Canadian senior mining producer B2 Gold, who will be speaking in session 2 today, has undertaken exploration in the Muruntau Plateau gold-bearing fields in the Navoi region. Moreover, there's been an increasing presence of Canadian mining technology and service providers in Uzbekistan, as demonstrated by the strong participation in the 2 Canadian mining missions in 2017, and the considerable mining contingent which participated in the largest ever Canadian trade mission to Uzbekistan last year in May. Canada's trade team at the embassy in Moscow, responsible for trade promotion in Uzbekistan, continues to be actively engaged in identifying trade opportunities in both markets. And I'll give you a trade lead. You should all know my colleague Heather Bistrick, who is right here, and who is also based in Moscow. Furthermore, as an important partner for the Embassy of Canada, we were very pleased to participate in the opening of the Cerba chapter in Tashkent last year. We hope that the opening of the chapter supports increased collaboration between our 2 countries. Russia has long been an important market for Canadian mining companies, given our shared interests and circumstances as northern neighbors. There's existing and meaningful Canadian direct investment abroad in the Russian market, with the presence, obviously, of Kinross Gold, principally, but also other Canadian mining investors such as Silver Bear Resources, Barrick Gold, not to mention major engineering firms and mining suppliers of equipment, services, and technologies. As we will hear in more detail later this afternoon from Kinross Senior Vice President, Kinross continues to expand its operations in Russia with the recent acquisition of the Chulbatkan deposit in Khabarovsk Krai, further demonstrating the potential for Canadian companies in the Russian market. Ambassador Darchiev, I agree with you that reaching $2 billion in turnover trade is a success. We continue to take advantage of common economic interests, and 2 billion was a mark that we had been waiting to reach for a long time. You mentioned the Eastern Economic Forum and the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. The Government of Canada was present at both last year, and we also plan this year to lead delegations from Canada at these two events. During my tenure as acting ambassador and deputy ambassador, I've had the opportunity to meet Canadian business leaders active in Russia at important events as the two I just mentioned, EEF and SPEAK. And I've heard firsthand from them, from Canadian companies, about the opportunities as they navigate this large and important market. I look forward to continuing this dialogue with those of you in the audience today and hearing about your experience during the panels today. In closing, I also want to thank Cerba for this opportunity and the whole team for a great success today. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be the Chargé d'Affaires Minister-Counsellor of the Republic of Belarus to Canada, Mr. Evgeny Russak.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, once again, Evgeny Russak, Chargé d'Affaires of Belarus. It is my special pleasure to welcome participants and guests of the 20th anniversary Cerba Eurasia Mining Conference, organized by the association, which is considered by Belarus as a main Canadian commercial partner. As you may know, Belarus is generally not rich endowed with mineral resources. It does possess, however, one of the largest reserves of potassium salts. Also, the country is a world leader in the production of peat, which in briquette form is used as fuel. Among the other minerals recovered are salts, building materials, chiefly limestone and quartz sands for glass making, and some modest but deposits of gold and diamond. Located at the crossroad of centuries-old trade routes from Russia to Western Europe and from the Baltic to the Black Sea, Belarus has developed a solid transport infrastructure. We have relatively modern highways, railway, and transit communication systems, linking the Eurasian Economic Union with the European Union and other countries. Meanwhile, heavy industry is the country's calling card, with Belarus being one of the world's largest suppliers of mining and quarrying vehicles, named Belas, while Minsk Tractor Works produces 1/10 of the world's tractors and mass exports buses, coaches, and trucks around the world. Just imagine the country holds up about 30% of the world market of dump trucks. At the same time, not a single truck is used in Belarus, but they're relatively popular in Russia, China, and Latin America, and hopefully we'll have them in Canada soon. Representatives of Belarus participate in today's conference and stand ready to be involved in negotiations on the margins of it. Ladies and gentlemen, so you are most welcome to consider Belarus as your business and investment partner that seeks to expand cooperation with Canada's mining industry and would welcome the joint projects. Besides, the trade obstacles that used to be in our relations are being lifted, and now is the perfect timing to have a closer look at commercial Belarus. And I sincerely wish your conference success in finding new opportunities, interesting ideas, and good luck with your business in Greater Eurasia and in Belarus. Thank you.
Our next speaker is from the Embassy of Kazakhstan, Mr. Murat Rustemov, who's the counselor at the Embassy of Kazakhstan to Canada, please. So, no, discipline. Okay, please, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I was told by organizers that we are a little bit running short of time, and that is why I will try to be very concise and in short in my welcome remarks. Dear Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it's my great pleasure to be here today at the Jubilee, the 20th Cerba Eurasia Mining Conference 2020. And I'd like to welcome all of you at today's Jubilee gathering, and to thank Cerba for this continuous support and efforts during these last 20 years. Kazakhstan is Canada's largest trading partner in Central Asia, and the federal government has identified Kazakhstan as one of the priority markets in Global Market Action Plan. Both countries definitely look and has many things in common, and our trade and economic cooperation is developing quite successfully. The last year, the bilateral trade turnover exceeded more than $480 million, almost twice as the year before. And the mining is a driver and the main sector for both countries, and especially in our bilateral cooperation. So I also would like to note on the investments of Canada to Kazakhstan, which are also growing. And the majority of the investments, the volume, they are in the mining sphere. So for the last 15 years, the total cumulative amount was about $4.7 billion US, and almost half of it is the mining, oil and gas sphere. And I also would like to note about the KCBC, the Kazakhstan-Canada Business Council, which was established with the General's help and support of Cerba. And its fourth meeting will be hosted in Nur-Sultan this summer, and I'd like to invite all companies which are presented here, the businesses, to take part in this very important event. So here we definitely will listen to the speeches of also Kazakhstan delegation and the main changes, which I think are very considerable, especially in the mining sphere, with adoption of the new code of the soil and subsoil use, but I hope that Mr. Baymyshev will cover it in detail. And just as a case, I would like to say that the government of Kazakhstan pays great attention to the development of economic relations with Canada. And last year, also, Kazakhstan hosted 4 business missions from Canada and from provinces Ontario, Quebec, and Alberta. So these visits were very successful, and they demonstrate that there is a great potential for mutually beneficial cooperation. So I hope that today's event will be very helpful and instrumental and help us to promote our cooperation to further a new level. Thank you very much, and